All right, we're all set? All right, we will bring tonight's meeting to order for the Norfolk School Committee for Tuesday, October 19th. The time is 7:05 p.m. And as we start out every meeting, read the mission statement, which is the Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide education, inspires lifelong learners, and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Roll call, please.
Sarah Ward.
Shannon Meneses.
Jennifer Wynn.
Medora Champagne.
Thomas Doyle.
Ingrid Alardi.
All right. Let's see. I don't think, is anyone, do we have any public comment, or is this?
This is all
I thought so.
district
Okay.
employees.
So I assume so. So no public comment. We do not have any correspondence, that's correct?
Yep.
Okay, so skipping ahead to my favorite form, the Superintendent Evaluation form. So thank you for everyone who got their stuff in for me. So I try to put everyone's stuff together and come out with one single form. So we'll have to go through this and then ultimately vote on it. And then this, just for everyone's reference, will be a public document that obviously anyone will be able to see going forward. I'm trying to recall in years past, do we actually read this entire thing?
I think you've just summarized the highlights because everybody's seen it in their packet.
Okay.
It is posted online and everybody wants to see it.
So you see the bulk of this, surprisingly, sarcastically, is mostly to do with everything having to do with the COVID pandemic ongoing, but everything that was involved in it last year and all the things involved in that. I will say all the, there's 4 different goals. This is mostly for everyone listening at home. Professional practice, district improvement. There's 3 different goals listed under district improvement. And then there is sort of standard markers that are in here, which are instructional leadership, management operations, family and community engagement. And there's one other additional one, and then as well as professional culture. I know for me personally, in going through this, as I said, I tried to incorporate everyone's individual comments they sent to me. Given the last year, the one I found to be the most important as far as the overall rating would be the family and community engagement. I think everything could not have been handled any better as far as that goes. I mean, we didn't always have the best news to convey, but at least we conveyed it and gave people as much time as possible to digest that and figure out how they're going to plan things from there. So overall, it leads to the final overall scoring, and there's 4 categories: unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. And then, so the overall comments of us putting that all together is exemplary. So that's sort of a brief synopsis of it. I guess if we could get a motion to accept this, and then obviously we can discuss it further as needed.
I move to accept the superintendent evaluation for Dr. Alardi as presented.
We have a second on that?
Second.
Any further comments, questions? All right, seeing none, so
Well, I mean, other than to say, it was a job well done.
Yeah.
Probably the worst year to be a superintendent of a public school. So certainly appreciate all the above and beyond effort that went into it.
Yeah, the many nights, many weekends, and lack of family vacations did not go unnoticed by any of us.
And
so.
yeah, I mean, just it was just such a constantly shifting situation too, that I know it was stressful as just a person and a parent with a child in the school, wondering what was going to happen next, and then having to be the person who was actually orchestrating the response to that would have been, I think, a tremendous challenge. So I thought it was great.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And obviously, I think that our capacity to get through last year was highly dependent on the outstanding administrators that I work with on a day-to-day basis. They also went way above and beyond, as well as our teachers, who did an incredible job under difficult circumstances, transitioning to remote learning, then to hybrid learning, redesigning instruction. So I think it was really a team effort. So,
And doing it with a very good attitude, which I know my children definitely noticed, which we all want our children to feel safe and happy about their teachers, the staff. So thank you.
And actually, now that and with an administration
roll.
that had been trimmed back significantly. I mean, your administrators were working without the benefit of assistant principals and were responsible for everything a principal and an assistant principal would be responsible for, plus COVID. So
Right.
that was quite a bit. Yep. I'll stop now.
Actually, now I'm going to go.
Okay.
It's going to keep going and going. No, I think I'm glad you mentioned the fact of the other folks that contributed to this, because I think there is a section in here, and I apologize, my glasses keep fogging up, so now I'm going off memory, but there is a section that references that, the fact that something to the effect of you'd be the first person to say that you wouldn't have got through this without all the help you received from everyone. And so, and it's not like you had a way or a prior manual to look at and like, oh, how do we approach a worldwide pandemic? The one written in 1919, I imagine, slightly out of date. So, yeah, no, it was an outstanding job overall. I mean, if you remember, for all the years on this, I've always harped on communication, stuff like that, and I honestly don't think that could have been handled any better. And I think that was the single biggest thing that I took from this personally. But as I said, it's a job well done, and I know this doesn't just reflect you, it reflects the district as a whole, so very nice to see. So, that all being said,
There's just a typo on page 3.
There's a what?
Typo on page 3.
I'm amazed there's only one.
AJ, maybe you can correct that.
2021 school year. Just want to make sure it was accurate for 2020, 2021.
It just seemed like one endless year.
I was going to say a little like
I mean, it's true.
Groundhog Day.
It's true.
I'm not the biggest fan of this form, and getting this all together, I at one point had 3 screens up, and I almost threw my laptop against the wall, so.
I know, even writing in it was like.
It's a state form, and it's just a little
You
challenging
guys
to
would send it
navigate.
over to me, and it would come off all off-centered. I'm like, I don't even know what this is saying.
I send you screenshots.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Someone had sent a screenshot. That was actually the more effective way of doing it, honestly.
Noted for next year. Our next evaluation.
All right, so gold star for Sarah for noting the end of school year, so we'll fix that. So anyway, assuming no further comments, all in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. Would I be able to sign that, since that's just a quick typo
Yep.
thing? Yeah, that's fine, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll get back to that in a second. So we've got a number, this is our typical thing, we go through the fundraisers for the year.
And per school committee policy, the school committee has to approve any fundraising efforts and marketing that takes place in school towards students. These are, you'll note that there's really very few new fundraisers. These are traditional fundraisers that have pretty much run every year. Anticipated fundraisers are listed for the 6th grade promotion committee. So really between the schools, there's nothing new that's coming that we haven't reviewed and approved in the past. There's some that have been eliminated right now because of COVID restrictions. PTO has also included their proposed fundraisers for the school year. We have talked a little bit about, there's a couple of fundraisers that are big events for the PTO that generate a lot of funds and revenue for the schools, one being the book fair and the other is the Merry Market event. Both of those, we've talked to the PTO about structuring in a way that would be COVID safe. And what we've talked about is the Merry Market running after school hours in the evening hours when children aren't present. We will require and enforce all of our COVID protocols, so people will have to be masked to come in with limit and stagger times when people could come so that we limit the crowd size. But we would be working, PTO will work directly with the building principals and with the school nurses around creating those events in a way that's safe for the community. Any questions on proposed fundraisers?
Is the Chipotle one new?
We've done other restaurants in the past.
Okay.
We're going to do a restaurant and a percentage of the profits from the
Right.
restaurants.
Well, on the second page, I mean, moms can't go to the craft beer tasting? It's just for dads?
Just for the kids.
It's just for the kids. That was awesome.
All right, so do we have a motion to accept the proposed fundraisers as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the PTO fundraisers as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So we're approving both the PTO and the building fundraisers. So they've included the carrying, the holiday collections and other things they did.
So I guess to clarify, the motion would be all fundraisers as
Yeah.
presented.
All the fundraisers as presented in the packet.
I will second that as well.
All right. Assuming no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Skip ahead to Ingrid.
All right, so our first item on the agenda today, I'm excited to be able to introduce to you all our new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Jessica Peppel, who is going to come join us up at, you can take Vicky's seat. As we talked about last spring, we were thrilled to be able to, through grant funding, create this new position. It's a regionally shared position. Jessica is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Rentham, King Philip, Norfolk, and for Plainville. We are thrilled to have her as part of our team. She's been just invaluable in supporting professional development and is supporting some curriculum reviews. What we asked Jessica in the first 90 days of her employment with the 4 districts was to really focus on doing a listening tour, talking with parents, talking with students, talking with staff members, and really trying to hear from the public and from the members of our community what we're doing well as far as equity work, where we may have some areas of need. Again, when we're talking about equity, we are talking about making sure that our schools are welcoming, inclusive, and that all students that walk through our front doors feel a sense of belonging, can see themselves represented in our curriculum, and that we are looking carefully at where we may have practices and policies in place that are disadvantaging some of our students so that we can correct those. So Jessica's here tonight to share with you her findings from her district DEI listening tour.
All right, thank you so much, Ingrid. I appreciate your time. Can you all hear me pretty well?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's go. My name is Jessica Peppel. As Ingrid just mentioned, I am the Regional Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I'm here to share my findings from my DEI listening tour. Before I begin any type of presentation, I'd kind of like to go and have a theme with a quote. And for tonight's quote, we have, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new," from Socrates. My first 60 days. So I was guided with the belief that I need to get a pulse on the community. What's going on? What's working well? What can we do better? What's going on? So for the first 60 days, I met with many stakeholders, parents, teachers, admin, the superintendent, and I also met with some students from the high school and the middle school. I mentioned that piece because I want to share some of my findings from that. The thing is, with the Norfolk school community, our kids are younger, so it was not appropriate for me to speak with them. But knowing that some of our students have gone on to the middle school and the high school, I think it's important for me to validate and to share what they had to say. So, this report captures key learnings from my listening tour. Hopefully the information in this report will guide us in creating a strategic plan aimed to make our community more inclusive and culturally responsive for all students. So, I appreciate those who I spoke with. I appreciate those who I did not have a chance to speak with, because guess what? They're going to hear from me. And I look forward to always having my door open to speak with the community. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. I do want to point out something. I think I spoke with altogether across all 4 districts, maybe 320 people. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of hours. So some of the information that you'll see here tonight is coded, and coded is just a fancy way of me saying a lot of the information presented is broken down into themes. So we're looking at some qualitative data by themes. All right, but first, our beloved Norfolk community. Public school, serving grades pre-K to 6th grade, 987 students. And Dr. Ingrid Alardi is our superintendent. Over here, this is just a piece about Norfolk. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens for our ever changing world. A great way to capture our focus for DEI this evening and this year. All right, so small piece of data, but I just wanted to show the breakdown of our student race and ethnicity along with our selected population. So I'll give you a second to read that, but over here you will see our percentages by breakdown for our different ethnicity groups, such as African American, Asian, Hispanic, Native American, white, Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander, and multi-race, non-Hispanic. Some of our selected population information includes students whose first language is not English, our English language learners, our students with disabilities, our students with high needs, and our students who are classified as being economically disadvantaged. The snapshot of information was pulled from the DESE website. All right, so I think 2 slides ago, I mentioned the term culturally responsive teaching. Kind of want to go over what that term, culturally responsive, means. All this nice jargon, right? So culturally responsive teaching is a pedagogy that recognizes the importance of including students' cultural references in all aspects of learning. Pretty much we're taking their identity and their experiences of who they are, what they bring to the table, and we embrace it in the school community. Culturally responsive teaching acknowledges, responds to, and celebrates fundamental cultures, offers full equitable access to education for students from all cultures. Here's some key pieces that I want you to take away from this slide on what culturally responsive teaching looks like. Positive perspectives on parents and families, communication of high expectations, learning within the context of culture, student-centered instruction, culturally mediated instruction, reshaping the curriculum, and the teacher being the facilitator. So to kind of sum that up as teacher being a facilitator, meaning our students are doing the most talking. Those who talk the most learn the most. And we definitely want that to be our students. All right, so part of my listening tour included 5 questions. I asked 5 questions and just let people have at it. So the first question that I ask is, what do you love about the Norfolk School District? Some themes that came up: small community, school feels like a family, supportive parents, collaborative team. Some quotation marks from what I pulled from the open responses includes, Ingrid is collaborative and gives leeway. She has confidence in what we are doing and that we are doing it well. I love those who are open-minded to change. I'm looking forward to getting others to think about it as well. Get them out of the comfort zone. Good sense of community. Teachers are here for the children and put them first. People rise above. Strong sense of community. Our school feels like a family. Definitely a school family. We take care of each other and we treat everyone with respect. Having the partnership and companionship is important. You lean on each other to make things work in the district. This challenge is good because you help to learn about things you wouldn't know in a bigger school district. You learn so much, you learn to be a better practitioner. So I'll give a few more seconds for you all to take a look at that slide before going on to the next one. Second question. What is a strength and challenge of Norfolk Public Schools? Our themes of strength: supportive of students, administration values teacher voices, strong recruiting power, up to date with what's going on in education. Themes of challenges: little time to collaborate, very entitled town. In terms of diversity, some people have a check the box type of approach. And students who receive free or reduced lunch feel invisible. What is working well in regards to equity, inclusion, and diversity? Now, before I read some of these statements, I just want to share that this is the information that was given to me. Not my opinion whatsoever. I just want to point that out. I say that now because when we go to the next slide, I want us to breathe. Okay? Okay. Here we go. The inclusion of special education students is working well. We work well with including students. I still think that is working well. I think we try to be very aware, and anytime we plan a new learning project or school-wide event, we always try to look at it through the lens and that we're including everybody, despite language, culture, beliefs, family, background or learning, emotional challenges. Just ask is our focus. If you are wondering about a person, just ask. This is a pretty new conversation as a district. We had taken the first step with acknowledging from some of the initial professional developments, that's what PD stands for, has been positive. People are ready to lean into this work. They are specifically looking for guidance around what they don't know. They want to do better towards their families. We don't have a lot of resistance. In 2012, there was one ELL student, which means English language learner. Now there are 46. We have hired a teacher, built a program, we have an administrative assistant, and outreach to parents. We have done some work with culturally responsive teaching practices. We were working with Khalees Warnham. We're bringing this back. We have a lot of people who wanted to be a part of the equity committee and audit. We receive a lot of support with school psychologists while incorporating everybody. The second step curriculum that talks about bullying is kid-friendly and talks a lot about differences, such as kids' lunches perhaps smelling differently. As a system, I think there is a growing awareness to our need that we need to be conscious of language, material, and content choices. It is a growing awareness. We have a long ways to go, but it is at the forefront of people's minds. I feel that it has become an awareness. So, key takeaway here, there's awareness. A lot of people understand what's going on, and especially for the need to shift the conversation, especially with our growing demographics, the population changing here in Norfolk. Right, remember I said to breathe earlier. I'm gonna say it again, I need y'all to breathe, especially on this slide right here. So what's not working well with diversity, equity, and inclusion? Not a lot of role models and peers. If you are not white with blue eyes, a lot of the curriculum is so driven, sometimes folks don't feel comfortable with that vibe of putting it to the side. What I mean, well, not what I mean, but what the person was saying right here is sometimes conversations are hard to have when it's around race, when it's around different cultures, ethnicity. So it's often easier to kind of skim over it or touch the surface of it and put it to the side. I don't know how parents will react. You have the best of intentions, now you're dealing with another level of issue. We have a second step program, but it doesn't touch DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We don't have enough about diversity and equity. I have a bulletin board about diversity and famous Black leaders. We have to implement change. The teachers here are very comfortable. We are so inundated and burned out. There isn't a lot of diversity in the town. That is more challenging as a teacher. You want to make sure you're exposing students. We've done a lot of professional development, but still, our books are helping. When I think of diversity in staffing, I don't think of diversity as race, but I think you look at people and what they bring to the table. We have a few people who are diverse because of their ideas. They all end up in one classroom. It is not inclusive and equitable. Something I've noticed for a while, not sure how to change it based on service providers. And what this person is referring to is our students who are English language learners. And when that person stated, I've noticed for a while, not sure how to change it based on service providers, there's just talking about maybe some conflict with the scheduling and the way the kids receive their services and what they need. Sometimes it might be easier to service kids in one location in one classroom versus being spread out. Some of our parents feel like outcasts. They don't always feel included because they have children with different learning needs. The community dynamics. Significant outreach needs to be done with community. Heightened conversations make it hard to have discussions. There are some staff, not a lot, that still believe in, I don't see color, and don't understand why this is a problem in our school district. We have other staff members who are far more advanced. We are a microcosm of the country. Norfolk is a predominantly white community. There isn't an opportunity for kids to converse with other ethnicities and their experiences. We are not getting the people. Have we made the hard-nosed attempt to do so? And that statement right there is in regards to recruiting more teachers of color. All right, how can I support you? That was the last question. How can I support you? How can I help? There are themes around encouraging conversations, working with teachers and administrators, assistance with curriculum, sharing articles and resources, having mutual goals. To sum it up, what I want for our team is to challenge and disagree with each other, contribute, and actively engage. All right. So earlier I mentioned that I spoke with our students. I spoke with about 60 students, 30 from the middle school, 30 from the high school. And here's just a snapshot of what they're saying. So I think it was a couple of months before I started with the region, students took something called a Panorama Survey. So Panorama Survey talked about issues around race, equity, and inclusion, and we wanted to hear what our students were saying. So I believe we had close to 1,300 responses, and here are some of the questions that were posed. I'll get to more of the open response. The first question reads, how fairly do students at your school treat people from different races, ethnicities, or cultures? 81% responded favorably. Now, what I mean by favorably is they probably had a better experience. That's what I mean by favorably. How much respect do students in your school show you? 58% responded favorably. Overall, how much do you feel like you belong to your school? 52% responded favorably. How well do people at your school understand you as a person? 34% responded favorably. And how connected do you feel to adults at your school? 24% responded favorably. Now, this was given in February 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic. If this survey was given 2 years ago, would it be different? It's a possibility the numbers would be different. But I just want you all to keep in mind that a majority of the school year, students were remote. Students didn't have that physical contact, physically being in the school building, which could have made a difference. Okay. So ask the students, what is not working well in regards to equity, inclusion, and diversity? Some of the following was shared. Implementing what the kids say, they get the points for saying it, but not for the action. And what students mean by that is, some teachers will talk. They talk about it, but when it comes to the action of it, what I mean by talk about it is conversations around race. Conversations around race, news events around race. Macro and micro aggressions. Teachers would confuse us. 2 Asian girls, darker skinned people confused by teachers. So microaggressions, I do want to go over that vocabulary a little bit. It's just like it's like a subtle racist remark. So subtle, it reminds me of a mosquito bite. It hits you before you know, it. You go home and you think, oh, did it just mean this? Did you mean that? That's what it can be. And sometimes it's infused with humor. So you might not realize that you were impacted or insulted until later on. They don't take the time to have conversations. Going back to the teachers, A lot of the students said to me, Ms. Peppel, we know something is going on, but no one wants to talk about it. Racist things are said to me. This is peer-to-peer. Students saying it to each other. A lot of black kids feel pressured to conform since the majority of the school is white. Students are scared to speak up. That piece kind of goes back to the macro and microaggressions. If I feel like an adult has said something racist towards me, do I have the courage to say something back to that adult? It's hard as an adult to say that to another adult. It might be even harder for a student to say that. They only teach the basics on how racism was addressed. So once again, just going back to the curriculum. I don't understand why they have a month and some folks only have a week. Going back to the cultural awareness, Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, different things of that sort. And on the right-hand side, just going back to some of the adults as well, it goes back to the apprehension to not want to engage in it or the inability to do this. Some people will say to me, well, Jessica, I want to talk about it, but how do I? I don't know how. And I don't want to make things worse by saying the wrong thing. Sustain, how does this look for the rest of the staff, students, and families? There has not been a lot of attention to student voice for the subpopulations across the districts. Yes, for our LGBTQ students in the high school. In terms of equity for other groups, it's been a slow progress. How are the kids feeling? I don't know if it's my place to identify what's not working well. Work with them to identify what's not working. We were the first schools to open a bathroom, a non-binary bathroom, just to recognize that, okay, it's not just for boys or girls, it's for anyone. A big deal wasn't made about it. A lot of people in the community and the school who are stuck in their ways, who are not open-minded. And some parents are seen as a threat when it comes to having equity conversations. Strengths and opportunities for Norfolk. Culturally and linguistically diverse population of students. Availability of pedagogic resources. Great models of an effective language program. Dedicated and talented workforce. An amazing equity committee. Small-knit community. And students know how to advocate for themselves. Opportunities. The demographics are changing in Norfolk. Addressing deeply rooted biases and beliefs. We're now having those conversations. And then supplementing diversity in the curriculum. Next steps. So I broke it down by district, by students, by curriculum. For the district, having diversity, equity, and inclusion, professional development for staff and administration. I'm happy to admit that is what's going on. Continue to make sure students are critical thinkers and understand perspectives from the past, present, and the future. Expanding the search for high-quality teachers of color. Partner with colleges and universities to increase the diversity pipeline. And of course, DEI workshops for our HR department. For our students, bringing in guest speakers and mentors who are of color. Opportunities to visit other communities to interact with diverse communities and students. So going outside of our four walls. For the curriculum, having a curriculum audit to ensure diversity, equity, and culturally sensitive texts are available to students. Reviewing primary and secondary resources. Increasing culturally responsive and cultural proficiency strategies. Continuing with vertical alignment curriculum training. And looking at horizontal, continue to, because we're already doing it, looking at horizontal and vertical alignment of the curriculum framework with an equity lens. Revising and updating the social studies curriculum. there's more. I want you all to take a peek at that. That is a whole bunch of bullet points to read off. I will read off some. Of course, DEI workshops for our faculty, having an affinity group regionally, not just here in Norfolk, but as a region with KP, Rentham, Norfolk, and Plainville. Inclusive spaces for transgender and non-binary students. I'll skip around. Exit interviews with families. Well, what was working well, what wasn't working well as they're exiting out. DEI workshops for parents. Book study with administration and/or teachers. Reviewing rights and responsibilities. That's a fancy way for me to say our discipline system, code of conduct. Having a school climate survey. How are our students doing? What are they thinking? That's huge. Ensuring hallways and classrooms are welcoming and inclusive. And then having a look for, a cultural proficiency look for. This is on like our teacher evaluation system through DESE. And it's just kind of looking at how we're making things more inclusive for all of our students in each class. Upcoming professional development in Norfolk. All right, so we have a book study coming up. It's in regards to unconscious bias in schools. This will be starting in January, and this is open to all of our interested staff. So the title of the book is called Unconscious Bias in School, a developmental approach to exploring race and racism by Tracy Benson and Sarah Fireman. Woo, this is my piece. You see my name right here? I know, I get excited. Forgive me. So I have a full day of PD on January 8th, and this is titled Understanding Your Own Cultural Identity and the Impact of Systemic Racism on Education. This is open to all of our staff on January 8th. And then second part of the session right here, leaning into conversation about race and racism in the classroom. I'm going to be presenting, but I'm going to have like 3 of my colleagues with me to help break up those sessions and make it smaller. Anytime you're talking about DEI, it's important for safe spaces and that we have a small enough group to be able to facilitate so we can have honest conversations and learning. But earlier, remember I told you all, we've already started with this. We had our keynote address with Dr. Carol Blake, which was titled Let's Get in the Race. It was just the beginning to talk about open and honest conversation with race and its impact on teaching and learning. Staff went through this before the first day of school with our students. And some of our staff members are currently taking a graduate level course titled The Psychology of Racism and Discrimination with instructors Dr. Brandy Deere and Dr. Christine Francis leading this piece. Class started August 3rd and will be commencing December 16th. And this course right here is being presented by Teachers 21 and the Organizational and Leadership Psychology Department at the William James College. 10-week long course. I hear it is intense, but it is worth it. And of course, it's talking about the foundational review of the history of discrimination in America. I do want to add, major emphasis of study will be on people with disabilities, Native American, Asian American, African American, Latino, Latina Americans, and our LGBTQ population, along with other racial identities and demographics, such as religion, class, and age. October 12th, we just had this right here. Building young learners' civic identities with cornerstones for civic engagement curricula. So right here, just really making sure that our new social studies curriculum has a DEI focus or has an equity lens focus for us to ensure that we are being responsive to the identity and the awareness of our students. This took place, participants were grades 3 through 5 classroom teachers, along with our special educators. So just taking a new look at our social studies curriculum. I do want to point this out because we were doing more than just looking at it. We will consider the role of civics in the elementary classroom and why it matters, then delve into lessons that can support these conversations in age-appropriate ways. Keepies. All right, our Norfolk Equity Committee. These are some of our goals that we have here. I'll read 2 bullet points, huge pieces, to identify different types of data, achievement, climate, discipline, that should be included in assessing the district's success in creating equitable and inclusive learning environments for all students. Let me back this up some because we just had our first meeting a few hours ago for our equity committee. 2 things came up. 1, we're still learning. The learning doesn't stop. The learning doesn't stop when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. If we are to be looking at data and different policies, you have to continue to know and understand the work yourself. Our hope for this year is for us to start some curriculum, oh my gosh, I just went blank. For us to start some auditing, looking at our curriculum, looking at our classroom library, and also looking at some different surveys that we could look to see how our students are doing. Oh, just said it right here. Data-driven equity audit of district policies, curriculum, and instructional practices in order to identify areas of strength and areas in need of improvement. Our goal is to come back to you all next year to develop a report for the school committee and strategic planning committee that includes recommended goals and action steps to address equity gaps in Norfolk Public Schools. All right, hang with me, hang with me, hang with me. So, this is my favorite piece right here when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance, but belonging is dancing like no one's watching. So, I'm Jessica Peppel. I appreciate your time, and I will open it up to questions if you have any. Not all at once.
Thank you very much. I don't know what,
Thank you.
what questions, comments?
I
That's
had
prepared to answer.
just like a question, it's more of a clarifying thing. The KP students that you spoke with that you incorporated into the presentation, are they students who tracked out of the Norfolk schools, or are they just KP students in general?
They're KP students in general.
Okay,
So I didn't ask them, like, okay, did you go to Norfolk, Rentham?
okay,
I just know that they were in the middle school and not high
okay,
school.
got it.
And again, I think with that, we didn't feel at this point that it was appropriate to talk to the younger students as part of a focus group, although we are going to be looking at climate surveys for possibly our older students and families to complete. However, we did have that data for the middle school, and we recognize that many of the children there have gone through all 3 systems.
Right,
So
correct. Yep, okay, got it.
I have a bunch of questions.
ahead.
I usually do, Jessica. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great presentation, very, very thorough, so thank you. This might be more for you, Dr. Lardy. Back to the ELL classroom talk. I thought, and maybe things have changed, but in order to have ELL students in a classroom, doesn't that teacher have to have specific training, or is that kind of?
that's a licensure requirement. So yes, the state requires people to be trained in sheltered English immersion. The vast majority of our teachers have been trained, and then the state requires if you have a student with ELL needs and you're not licensed, that you have to complete that certification within a short period of time. So yes, that is a requirement.
So I'm just wondering if maybe sometimes the students might be in more classrooms than the other because that teacher has the specific licensure. That's just a thought.
Sometimes it's
I had.
something that we're going to be looking at. It is also, as Jessica mentioned, our population went from very small numbers and it grew very quickly. So depending on students' level of English language proficiency, they're required to have a certain amount of direct instruction in English as well as direct instruction in the classroom.
Right.
And we have a very small, we only have one English language certified ELL teacher. So in some cases, students may be clustered so that they can receive that volume of support. But it is something we're looking at, and it does have budget implications.
I have friends who went through the training, and I know it's intense. So that's why I was like, oh, maybe they don't have certification. Just something like that. And then it was hard for me to hear as a parent and a as you said, thank you for acknowledging that. And as a fellow educator, and then sitting here and with my school committee hat on, some of the comments about not feeling like they belong, those sorts of things. I don't know if you can talk. I know that you came out with general themes, but what I think there was one comment about the reduced lunch. I don't know if you could further clarify that. Were they feeling like, because normally that's not a well-known, that's a confidential fact. So I'm wondering.
That was just something small.
Okay.
That was just kind of thrown out there.
Okay.
I do believe the person I was speaking with received that information from someone else. So I didn't dive too deep into that since it didn't come from, or they didn't experience that directly. It's like hearing it from a friend.
Add to that a little bit though, because we have heard in the past, because Norfolk is often perceived as a community that is financially in good condition, that some of our families who require financial assistance or support feel isolated in this community, and that sometimes that population doesn't feel seen. I don't think that we need to delve further into that, but I do know that we do outreach to families when people need tuition assistance or other things like that, and I have heard from people who have said, they feel kind of alone, that it's hard to access resources in this community. There's not a lot available. Housing-wise, there's not a lot of apartments available when people are losing housing or looking for temporary housing. So I have heard that population can feel isolated or invisible in the community.
And if I could just add, I think just one small piece with that was magnified, that feeling was magnified even more when COVID hit.
Yes.
And just knowing that so many people lost their jobs, food shortages, food insecurity, I think it just made it hard for some folks to say, I need help, but where are the resources? So I can tell you that much from that piece.
And what do you think they meant by, in terms of diversity, some people have a check-the-box approach? Like I'm assuming it means, Black History Month, check. I read a story on, Native Americans currently living in Plymouth.
Check.
So I was
Surface level.
Hate to assume,
I did it.
Yeah. And my next question is, what is an affinity group?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I should know that. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. The affinity group that I was referring to was for our people of color across the district as adults. We have a very small population, I think maybe 9 teachers across the region who are teachers of color, and just giving them that safe space to collaborate, talk, and then just kind of see what's going on with them to see how they can be supported.
Love it.
So just having that group for them.
Affinity groups in general, though, can be formed around any way people identify themselves, finding people with similar, who share similar characteristics.
I love
or
it.
traits. So,
Never heard that term before, but, and I think it just goes back to, it's such an important discussion to have and much needed. And I think you hit on it too, and I know I talked to Dr. Alardi about this. I'm a fellow educator, not in this town, but and we've started talking about it, and it's been interesting to see myself and how I've grown in my awareness. And I feel that I've been able to do that because it's very safe, psychologically safe.
Yeah.
And I haven't felt like if I say something, someone's going to be like, I can't believe you, what? You don't know what an affinity group is? Where have you been? Whatever. So I really do appreciate that. And I know that I just think it's really important for everyone to feel, so that you're heard, right?
Right.
Because you can't really grow if you don't feel like you can talk about stuff. You just shut down. So I think that's really, I really like that you said that. 2 more things.
Sure thing.
One thing I was a little sad not to see on here and talking about diversity is something that's kind of new and dear to my heart is neurodiversity, and talking about that, of course, special ed, but autistic people, you know, like it's a real, like they are identifying as a cultural group and that this is who I am and don't try to change me. And I think, you know, we're starting to see that. I work at the middle school level. It's like, all right, my prosody of speech is different. So what?
Right.
You know, why are you trying to fix me? Like, this is me. And I would like to see that explored a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. That did not come up in any of the conversations.
No,
I
I'm
do
not
want to
trying to
note
ask.
this.
No,
I started May 17th. So this was right around the time where we're just getting back, we're getting ready to get out, trying to catch and interview as many people as I can. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm still open to hearing to what people have to say and how I can support them. But neurodiversity was something that did not come up. So it's not ignored. It's there. It's one of our protected classes. But that's just something that didn't come up from participants here in Norfolk, nor with our students at KP.
it's just something to put on your radar, that's all.
Oh, it's already there.
Okay. Because it is near dear to my heart. But, and then my last one, just talking about the curriculum. You know, I know that we just went through a whole new social studies approval last spring.
Right.
So when I read it, I was like, what? We just went through a whole new social studies. And I just, from what I understand, and tell me if I'm misunderstanding, is you're not talking about changing the curriculum.
Not at all.
You're basically looking at it and saying, okay, where are we with the books? Are they really old and out of date? Are we adding, are we being...
That's a piece of it.
Okay.
So that's part of our book audits. That's a piece of it. And also making sure that we're not being biased and that the resources that we're presenting are not being biased and that we're holding people to a good light. So if I'm getting ready to talk about, I don't know, Native Americans or something like that, that we're just representing them and talking about them in a good light, not them walking around looking a certain kind of way, that's going to be less appealing. So we're having an equity lens on that. Like, how closely are we looking at this? And how are we uplifting and bringing a sense of belonging around that piece? So it's kind of like, if I were to come up to you and give you 3 different pairs of glasses, they're all different. They're all different types of medicine in those glasses. I'm asking you to take a different approach. You mentioned earlier about your awareness getting stronger. We want the same thing to happen towards the curriculum and for our teachers and our parents and community members to have that new perspective as well.
And I would add, with our social studies review, we did a comprehensive review of our curriculum. We measured what we were currently teaching against the revised frameworks that the state released and identified areas that we needed to supplement the curriculum to meet the new standards. So what you approved at the meeting was the purchase of new resources teachers could use to address those learning gaps. What Jessica's talking about too is a resource is a tool. It's the pedagogy and the practice and the way we present that to students that we are also working on. So it's not new adoption, it's really integrating the new tools into the curriculum and looking at how we're presenting them and how we're
We're
teaching.
following the social studies frameworks that
From the Massachusetts Department of Ed.
Massachusetts, everybody is, but just
Yep.
making sure that we are, you know, not being biased. Because, I mean, even I think back to a 6th grade book novel, and they recently got rid of it, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay?
And I go back and I look at it, I'm like, oh my goodness.
There you
Like,
go.
You know, same thing
That's
with
it.
like even, you know, like movies, right?
it, right,
And you're like,
right.
oh, Grease? Like when you look
Right.
at Grease now, it's like, oh my goodness.
Right. Right.
Stuff
Or
like
listening
that.
Or listening to certain lyrics from
Yeah.
a song 10 years
Right.
ago. Like,
Right.
I was
Right.
dancing to that? Wait,
Right.
it means this, so.
The way that it's being portrayed and, so, no, I get it. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So would it just be fair to put a bow on this one? It wouldn't be fair to characterize it by saying that we are in no way changing the curriculum. We are changing the delivery and application of the curriculum as it's being presented in the classroom. I mean, because the modalities are changing, the actual substance of what's being taught is not changing. Is that?
Right, the standards
Yeah.
are the
Yeah.
standards
Yeah,
as published by the
right,
state.
which I think was kind of the point you were trying to
Yep.
winnow in on. Okay.
Right, we're teaching the mass frameworks, and we may
Yep.
look for, you know, additional authors to bring in to support that curriculum study, additional materials that represent more diverse perspectives to add to that. But no, we teach the Massachusetts state frameworks for
Yes.
social studies.
Yes, that is like the Bible of standards, and you're
Yeah.
not judging that.
With that as the baseline, does the state provide any sort of material that would help you along in this process? I mean, they don't just, here you go, and then you guys figure it out from here? I mean, hopefully they give
That's
you
why
some-
that's why we have the PDs.
Yeah.
That's why we have our common planning. That's why we have our director of instruction and curriculum. That's why you have me here, to help have those conversations and to help develop those resources.
And some of the new materials that we adopted from primary source were developed with an equity lens in mind. And so they have more authentic primary sources people can integrate into instruction. And that was a state-sponsored curriculum development. We adopted materials through a state grant that they had worked on at the state level, so. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
A lot of work for your first 90 days.
That's what I was thinking. That's a lot of work.
Second 90 days.
All right, next we have Shelley Bernardini and Lisa Luce, our new Regional Food Service Director and Assistant Director, if you guys want to come to the mic. And they have a proposal for the school committee to consider regarding transitioning to peanut-free kitchens. So,
My peanut-free child just left the district, come on.
I'm assuming most of you have read the proposal that I put forward. I have a few more details since then that I've put together. Basically, given the number of peanut and/or tree nut allergies that are out there now, I'm proposing that we convert to a peanut-free kitchen. It would not require much, as most of our goods that we have already procured through our vendors for the year that we have bids on are already made in peanut or tree nut free facilities due to most schools already being peanut free. I performed a survey of 18 schools in the area of the Hockomock League area, and of that I heard from 9, 2 of them being Rentham and Plainville, which I also am the director for, and every single one of them are peanut free. So it's really the norm these days. I was actually a little surprised when I came here to find out peanut butter was still being served. I was like, really? I just found that kind of odd because it's just, like I said, it's just so not the norm anymore. There's cross-contamination issues and things like that for allergies. In the 2 elementary schools here combined, we have right now 32 peanut and or tree nut allergies for students. And out of those, 28 of them have EpiPens on hand in the nurse's office that need to be given should they have contact with the peanuts. So the proposed substitute that we go with is sun butter. And it actually has been used in the schools already this year, and it's been received fairly well. We also use it to make our very own in-house made-from-scratch hummus that is also tahini-free, which is also another allergy component for some people. And it's gone away pretty well. It's a very good and viable option and alternative to peanuts. It not only makes us peanut-free, in the kitchen, but we are hoping that this won't change any other policies that you have on hand. It won't prevent anyone from bringing in anything from home. So whatever your standard policy is now, we're not looking to change that. We just want our kitchen to be peanut-free so that when families send their children in to buy lunch from us, that is one thing that they do not have to worry about going forward. Our kitchen staff is trained to watch for allergies and preparing to watch for that as they come through the register at the H. Olive Day School. So if anything allergy-wise in general is to come through, the staff knows what's on their plate and they catch it at that point. Here at Freeman, they're not going through the registers as of yet due to capacity issues in the cafeteria. So what we do here is we give out a list right now to the people who are handing out the meals so that they can watch for any known allergies. And our kitchen will let them know what's being served that day that might be an allergen for someone to watch for. So we are very cognizant of what's going on with that. And like I said, the biggest one really is peanuts. The next most popular would be egg, and most of our products are egg-free, but again, when it's not, we make sure that we let the staff know so that they don't get served anything for that. We do have parents who reach out to us, and we let them know where we're at with the menu as well. There are some who we can populate the menu for them on a monthly basis, and we let them know what days those allergens may or not be coming into play so that they can plan their child's menu from there. Our hope is to make lunch more accessible again to students without having to worry about those allergens and put the mind of parents at ease at the risk of reaction or anything coming out of the kitchen that, might be of danger to the student.
I would just add two things to that. As Shelley said, this wouldn't change practice in the cafeteria. We're not proposing peanut-free cafeterias, so if students are bringing peanut butter and jelly, we will continue with peanut-free tables so that students with peanut allergies have a table where they can sit that they know there's not going to be any other allergens. This is really just about what we're serving and preparing from the kitchen. The other thing I would say, as Shelley said, most districts have already made this transition. We have been serving peanut butter, but the demand is very low. It is not like the most popular item on our menu.
No.
When we had peanut butter and sandwiches the other day, it's usually as an alt lunch, and I think we had a total of maybe 5 or 6 ordered in a building. It is not the most popular option. So I fully support this recommendation. I think it puts student safety first. It makes so that students that may have allergies can order from our kitchen safely, but it doesn't take away an option for a family that might want to send a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in. And also, before we vote on this change to the policy, I would also want to say that, as you are aware, and you probably saw in my Wednesday Sports newsletter, there have been significant supply chain issues impacting schools and school cafeterias across the state. We have had some of our staple foods that were ordered for the October menu trapped in a warehouse in Connecticut for multiple weeks because there were no truck drivers able to deliver that. So Shelley worked very closely with Matt Hafner to arrange for us to rent a truck and go pick up the food and bring it back here and deliver it to all 3 districts, Rentham, Plainville, and Norfolk. That took the better part of Friday, and Norfolk firefighters came to Norfolk to help unload the truck. There were 23 pallets of food or something like that.
5 pallets, 211 cases of food.
211 cases. So I just want to say thank you very much for going above and beyond and the hard work and efforts that both of you put in to make that happen. And we are one of the few schools now that has all of our supplies in for the next month.
So far. Thank you. Thank you.
It's hard work and teamwork. So.
Thank you.
Any questions for Shelley before we move forward?
I actually had no clue we still serve peanut butter, much like you, when you said, like, if you'd asked me to put like $5, do we still serve it? He was like, no, we have nothing.
I know.
That was me when I walked in here and I saw the menu and I saw those little Smuckers things in the freezer and I go, who's that for? And they said, well, we serve that. And I said, you what? I just didn't think it was common at all anymore, so.
Is sun butter more expensive, though?
The beauty of sun butter, for the most part, is that is something that we get through our USDA commodities quite often. So for most parts, it's almost a free item to us.
Okay.
And it's mostly sugar.
Not really the government one, no, but it is made from sunflower seeds. And I will tell you that when I looked up the allergies in the district, there are 2 students with sunflower allergies, and we're already aware of them and taking care of that, making sure that they don't order that. But that's the difference in numbers for sunflower allergies. And they happen to be peanut allergies anyway, as well. So it would have been a no for them either way.
And did you say you also have already moved away from the tahini and the hummus? There's no sesame
Well, the hummus that we offer right now on Thursdays it's a cookie dough hummus, and we serve it with a graham cracker and we serve it with fruits and vegetables, and we make it in-house from the sun butter, and there is no tahini in it. It's strictly we've chocolate chips in it, so it looks like cookie dough. It's got a little bit of maple syrup. It's got the sun butter, a little bit of vanilla extract. Next time, I'll bring some. Do they? Good.
I feel a little selfish asking this with the whole supply chain issue, but I know my kids would be very curious to know if ice cream will ever come back to buy, and just it's a little money revenue.
I would love to bring a la carte back. I'm hoping to do it sooner than later at the HL Day, specifically because they're going through the registers. Until they start coming through the registers here, I cannot even think about doing a la carte options. As soon as we can get that down and make sure that we've got the main food that we need to give them their meals, I would love to start reinstating ice cream and a la cartes. I know they miss it, and trust me, it's a great item for us, revenue-wise, exactly.
Was there any peanut butter in the October shipment? Could we like sell that on the black market somehow?
No, I hadn't ordered any, I ordered sun butter.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Budget.
I just wanted to clarify, I said the difference between HLF Day and Freeman, the students at HLF Day are going through the lunch lines because of the space and capacity issues. We have a smaller cafeteria and larger grade levels, and we have to have the distancing in place. We don't have anywhere for kids to line up without and maintain distancing.
So you
we
can't
have
track the
some of our
purchase,
grade
right.
levels in that small cafeteria, we have 150, 160 kids, whereas we've split lunches in some places in HLF Day, so there's significantly fewer.
Yeah, in HLF Day, you're doing 6 lunches a day because each grade is cut in half.
Right.
So they are able, timing-wise, to get them in there and have a lot less in at one point in time, whereas here you've got 4 grades, you've got 4 lunches.
Right, because we just don't have the capacity to split them with the schedules.
So do we have a motion to get rid of peanut butter?
So moved.
Yeah.
No, as the mom with a peanut allergy, I'm
Oh, so
My
raise it.
child eats
Better
peanut
than-
butter only in the kitchen.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
Yeah, for the peanut kitchen.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very much. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks, Lisa. Okay,
And thank you for evidently driving to Connecticut and commandeering our food shipment.
driving.
I'm sure there's only, yeah,
Other duties as assigned.
sure he did.
Road trip.
quite an effort.
It was quite the effort, but we got it in.
Smoking the Bandits.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting all of you.
Thank you.
Next, we had Dr. Anna Peppel was going to come to talk about the coordinated program review audit that the district underwent last year, which was delayed multiple times because of COVID. It's a comprehensive review of federal and state requirements for special education, civil rights. We also, it used to be called the CPR review, now it's called the Tiered Focused Monitoring Review. They've split it so that they do half of the standards every 3 years instead of everything every 6. Anna was not feeling well tonight, so I'm going to suggest we delay this till next month so that she can come and speak to what we provided. I would say it was over 300 hours of material preparation, submissions, documents required for the review, and Norfolk was found to be fully compliant with all of the regulations. We didn't have any findings and there's no corrective action, which is a Herculean feat to not have any.
300 hours of time last year?
Yes, yeah. And then I would say we got a notice today, we were randomly selected for another audit and we pushed back and said,
I feel like that should be like jury duty, like
It should be.
we're good.
And they granted it. They
Okay,
are
good.
going to delay our circuit breaker special education federal grant reimbursement audit for another year because of that, so. But Dr. Peppel will come next month to review these CPR findings.
I have one silly thing on that. It probably doesn't matter, but the phone number on the top, the second one, is cut off.
Oh, all right.
Silly, probably
Thank you.
doesn't matter, but.
I'll correct that for next month. All right, next, as you are all aware, our business consultant, Todd Hassett, who has worked for the district and supported us through many, many, many challenging budgets over the last close to 20 years, is going to be retiring.
I was not aware.
Yeah. Oh, I
Now I'm very sad.
Yeah, I sent out an email, but his last day is November 1st. And we have been in the process since August of recruiting and interviewing and looking to hire a new consultant to take over for Todd. The model that we have in our business office, we have Barbara Boone, who is our assistant business manager, who is here full-time. And then we have hired, historically, worked with Todd. He works between 4 and 8 hours a week and does, as a licensed business manager, does the budget preparation, staff for the big picture, end of year audits, all of those kinds of things. Whereas Barbara does the invoicing, the warrants, and the day-to-day operations. It was a difficult search. It's going to be very hard to replace Todd. His historic knowledge and his budget insight is incredible. But we were successful in finding a candidate. His name is Barry Nechtow. Todd and I have met with Barry a couple of times and have interviewed him. He is a recently retired school business manager. He was a business manager for Needham Public Schools as well as for Canton. Todd has worked with him as a member of the BICO board in the past. The school business managers that are all part of the BICO collaborative meet regularly. His references were outstanding from everyone that we spoke to, and Todd and I feel very confident that he has the skill set to come in and support and take over for Todd and lead our district with continued prudent financial advice and direction. So, by statute, the school committee is responsible for appointing the business manager, the superintendent, the special education director, and the school nurses and physician. This is not really a business manager appointment, it's a consultant, so it's not necessarily required that the committee appoint. However, I think because this person will have financial oversight of our budget, I would feel better bringing the recommendation to the committee and having you vote to appoint the consultant. What we have worked out is that it would be a monthly stipend. I think Adrian shared with you the draft letter of agreement. It's $3,200 a month. Probably with somebody new coming in, it'll be at least one full day, as well as budget subcommittee meetings, school committee meetings. It is what we have budgeted for this position for the year. So it is built into the current budget. It won't exceed. What we did is look at what we had for the consultant line. We divided it into monthly stipend. Mr. Nektow was comfortable with the offer and would like to come in and spend some time transitioning with Mr. Hassett before Todd leaves. So I'm recommending to the committee that you vote to appoint Barry Nektow. He was not able to be here tonight. I apologize, but I would bring him to the next meeting, but recommend that you appoint him as the new business consultant for the Norfolk Public Schools. Happy to take any questions you may have.
I also did not know Todd was leaving.
I sent everybody an email to let you know in August, but that you probably were getting a lot of emails, so people may have.
I feel like I never get school committee emails now that everything's calmed down.
And I will ask Todd to come to the November meeting so that the school committee can recognize
a
him.
number of times. It would be great.
Yeah.
Did Todd meet him?
I'd work with him.
Todd knows him.
Todd knows him, and Todd was very comfortable with the
Oh, okay.
recommendation.
And
We screened out quite a few candidates before
What candidates did you get?
we spoke to, we selectively recruited candidates. We spoke to several, I would say 3 or 4 that did not work out before we found Barry.
Well, I have nothing but trust and respect for the opinions of Todd Hassett and appreciate
Great.
the effort you've put into it. So based upon his resume, it certainly seems like he has financial advisor experience as well.
He does, and
It's
I
an
did speak with
understatement.
the superintendent from Canton, who had nothing but great things to say, that he was an outstanding, very easy to work with, very knowledgeable. And Todd spoke to 2 other references, the town finance director in Foxborough, as well as another business manager. And again, everybody had very, very positive things to say.
I like the fact there's a mixture, and I understand more recent, it's more relevant to have the school background, but he's got a private and public background. I think that's something that's interesting for the job, because Todd had that as well, if I understand correctly, right?
Yeah. He's been through MSBA, he's been through building projects,
So knows
which is
one of
a
that.
huge
Okay,
thing.
fantastic.
He's
Sold.
familiar with
All
the
right.
end of year
You should
reporting.
have let off with that one.
I should have.
I move to appoint Barry Nektow as the school's business consultant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Welcome.
All right. I guess I should have asked, was it successful MSBA engagement?
Yeah. All right, we have, next on the agenda is the reopening MOA with the Norfolk Teachers Association. As all of you are aware, last year we negotiated a memo of agreement that reflected our district's obligation to impact bargain over changes to teaching conditions and working conditions that resulted from the pandemic. As we headed into this year, we had hoped that the restrictions would be lifted and we would be in a different place, but that's not the case. So we revisited our prior MOA and renegotiated an agreement for this year. Very little, there's really nothing new in it from last time. There are some things that we removed because they were no longer relevant. Basically, the terms are the same as our prior MOA. You can go through the general provisions. Basically says that we will adhere to the requirements of the contract. Teachers will be paid their designated salary throughout the course of the year. If a teacher needs to request a leave of absence without pay, that we will consider those and make our best efforts to accommodate them based on the conditions we're working on under the pandemic. Teachers will check email within 24 hours and make every effort to respond to phone calls. The one new piece that we added is that NTA members are eligible to participate in the district test and stay program if they show symptoms at school. So they can, if a teacher has a headache, they can go down to the nurse. If they choose to participate in test and stay, they can remain in school as long as the test is negative. The NTA would like to continue the sick bank we started last year if people have to quarantine, and that's people are donating the days to support that sick bank. All the rest of the terms are really the same as what we've had in the past. That if we have cases in the district's buildings will be cleaned and sanitized, that if teachers are participating in remote team meetings or conferences, that the district's responsible for violations of student records, privacy,
Right.
things like that, that would relate to that format. Teachers are not going to be required to use their own personal devices for any remote instruction or for contact with parents. That teachers will receive training in first aid so that we can have them treat issues in the classroom and prevent the minor issues from going down to the nurse's office. We will provide PPE gear as needed. All other provisions of the contract will remain in force. No employees will be required to participate in meetings or remote activities outside of contract hours. And that we agreed that we would not negotiate at this time all the terms should we go to remote learning again. That if we have to do that because of a state-issued mandate, we'll revert to the prior MOA and meet within 7 days to make any adjustments to that we need to do. I think that's it.
So a lot of common sense, essentially.
There's really nothing dramatic. The only
good.
really additions, and Tracy can jump in if I'm incorrect, were that we added the test and stay access.
Right.
We're continuing the sick bank, and that we would renegotiate terms if we had to have a closure.
I guess I didn't realize that teachers' staff just didn't have automatic access to test and stay.
I mean, people really do, but we just codified that in the MOA.
And one more question, I'm curious, if a teacher wants to access the sick bank, who does he or she go to for that approval?
Per the terms that are outlined in this, the teacher would, I believe they notify the HR director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to accept the MOA as described?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, Jen, I'm just reading the provisions of the sick bank. They notify me in writing, or if they notify Roxanne, she brings it to me. Okay.
Do I sign that?
Yep, we need to sign that, and Tracy will need to sign it as well.
Tracy keeps moving around. She started over there.
Tracy can sign first. Just give it.
I know.
And then the
Keep
other
it good
piece
eye.
that we have to vote on today, when we renegotiated the last employment contract with the Norfolk Teachers Association, we agreed at the time that we would separately negotiate the terms of the educator evaluation process, because the state had issued some changes to the regulations, and we didn't want to have that tie up the contract provisions. So we've met and we've worked through and negotiated a new agreement for teacher evaluation. It's very heavily driven by state regulations. There's a lot of required elements. We really didn't make many changes other than the state removed what they had initially put out for district-determined measures. And in the prior evaluation process, every district had to develop common measures, assessment measures that they would use to evaluate educator impact on student learning. The state didn't provide guidance on that. Everybody was doing it differently. There was no comparison between one district's measures and the next, and so they withdrew that. So district-determined measures are no longer part of the educator evaluation process per the state. Instead, as part of goal setting and as part of the evaluation, we do have to identify common assessments, expectations for proficient practice, and that's reflected throughout the evaluation document under the student learning standards. Other than that, not a lot different. We clarified some language, we removed some redundant language. Happy to answer any questions people have. It's a 60-page document, so I'm not going to go through all of it because very little has changed.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions people might have.
Come on.
If we're all good, then we need to vote
Yeah,
to
see,
accept the revised educator evaluation language, and that will be then incorporated into the current collective bargaining agreement.
So do we have a motion?
So moved. Easy
Do we have a
peasy.
second?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Again, just another nice example, seeing we're able to work this out nicely, so thank you for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. I feel like I still have several items for you tonight, so I'll try to speed up and go quickly. The next is a request from the district, and Trish Kelly put forward the memo. We, last year during the pandemic, when we transitioned to remote or hybrid learning, we went to a 1-to-1 student-to-device ratio, and students were allowed to take their Chromebooks home. A lot of the work that teachers developed and the assignments students do at the upper grades from 3 to 6 is done in Google Classroom. So when they're working on a writing assignment and collaborating with other peers, a lot is done in Google Classroom. A lot of materials that teachers developed, lessons, reteaching, review, are in Google Classroom. We would like to request the school committee vote to allow us to have students in grades 3 to 6 take their Chromebooks home, bring them back and forth to school. We did that very successfully last year. We sent home district-wide over 980 devices. We actually, when we returned them, collected almost everything back. We did absorb about $3,000 in repair costs for that 1,000 devices, so it was very limited. We're not looking to send devices home for K1 and 2, just for the upper grades, so it's significantly smaller number. What we would like to, parents, when they take the device, would have to sign the Norfolk Public Schools Acceptable Use Policy, which clearly identifies for parents that they are responsible financially for damaged or lost equipment. We would provide a link to parents. If they choose to, they can purchase for $23 a device insurance policy. It's not mandated. Parents would have the option of either buying insurance or assuming responsibility for damages. But we think it would be really helpful and beneficial for students to continue their learning at home. It was very well utilized last year. And again, it supports the sort of connected environment we now have for students in terms of homework, project-based learning, communication with teachers and other students in the class.
Well,
So-
do they still have the covers, the soft covers?
Yeah.
They still
Yeah.
have access to that?
Yeah.
That's good. And where do I start? So I don't think it's just my daughter in 6th grade from what I've seen just on social media. I wonder, I see a lot of the kids, I've heard about a lot of the kids carrying everything in their backpack. I don't see how my daughter could physically fit another Chromebook in. I don't know whether there's a locker issue or many kids still don't feel comfortable using the locker, or it's executive functioning and they don't know what they should leave home and what shouldn't. I'm just wondering, will
Well,
they
I
even be able
think
to?
people, one of
fit
the
it?
things is if they can take their Chromebook home, they may
Right,
not
those
have to
books.
take all the hard copies of materials and textbooks, because they may be able to access a lot of material electronically.
That's just something I would
Yeah.
probably talk to the upper grade levels and just make sure that, the feedback that I've gotten is like, well, I'm nervous to use the locker, I gotta get, where I need to go and all that stuff, so I'm wondering what the percentage is.
They're moving around.
Well, she's like, I want to get to like the cafeteria, they
cafeteria.
want to, and I see it at my own middle school
Yeah.
too, it's like, I don't want to
Yeah,
use
it's
the locker, I don't have
definitely
time.
a middle school issue.
You know, I don't have time. And it's like, I don't even know, like, you want to hurt your back, that's fine, but now I'm like, I don't know how you're going to carry the Chromebook, and then I'm going to end up paying for it when you drop it. So selfishly, I'm just wondering, I don't think it's just her.
It's a
I do
Chromebook, not
think
a
that,
safe.
I mean,
it's
one of
something
the
that's
reasons
difficult to
teachers want
carry.
kids to be able to take it home is so that they don't have to bring books back.
And I get it. I just
Yeah.
wonder if they will get it
Yeah.
in their little brains.
I can certainly
And
share
when-
that.
They have big, beautiful
No,
brains.
they don't. It's research-based. Brains keep growing till 25, and then it's all downhill. And then
And at 25, they learn the
you
weight of
lose
a
it.
Chromebook
You
is
start
7
losing it. And then my next question is more for the teachers. I think Google. I live Google Classroom. I love it. I find it so helpful. I would find it helpful as a parent if I could go on and be like, oh, the science assessment is Thursday. I forgot. Like, yes, that email that was sent. Like, or you don't have that math sheet. Oh, look, it's in Streamwork. Like, it's just so helpful. So I think if we're going to send, grades 3 through 6, the Chromebook home with the belief that Google Classroom will be used, it would be great to know how many percentages of teachers would be using it. Because there's nothing more challenging than having one teacher do one thing.
The
And-
request to send them home originated with the 6th grade team, who do a lot of their assignments in Google,
Very snotty.
and it's a lot of common planning. You certainly can.
It's just my thought.
grade is going to be jumping on this
Yep.
anytime soon.
Yep.
I know the greatest need would be for them to do their reflex math in the evening, because a lot of, well, not a lot, there are a few kids that don't have it, so it might be just on a case-by-case basis. We might have to send them home to kids who don't have access to a device at home just for the reflex math, but I'm not getting the feeling from my colleagues that 3rd grade would be heavily involved in sending Chromebooks home on a regular basis.
Okay. And my daughter
And
probably
we
would need
will
because I
look at it
hate
by grade
using
level.
my computer, so.
We'll look at it by grade level, and in different grade levels, we'll look for consistency within the grade level. But it's really the upper grades and 6th grade primarily that uses it most frequently.
And I think that's great, because at the middle school, it will get them ready for middle school that does use it, so. Just my 2 cents.
All right, so do we have a motion then to allow Chromebooks to be taken home by the 3rd to 6th graders?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Last month, we reviewed the revisions for the daily cleaning protocols that basically said we are not doing the widespread electrostatic spraying in classrooms unless we have cases. We discussed that last time, but it hadn't been listed for a vote. So tonight, we need to technically vote to approve the revisions to safety protocols.
Okay. So do we have a motion to accept the revised daily cleaning protocols as discussed at last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Very efficient. Further comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next is a quick item. The Norfolk School Technology Department would like to donate some old and aging out equipment to the Norfolk Fire Department. Per policy, if they're making a donation of equipment from the school department that exceeds $500, the school committee has to vote to approve it. We have some Macs and Dell Chromebooks and that are unable to run current software even with upgrades. They've aged out of effective life use in the schools. We also have a 2010 smart board that is aging out, that won't run the kinds of things that we would need, but that the fire department's interested in
So they
for
want all
purpose of
this.
meeting. They want all of this.
We're not just leaving it
Dumping in front of
there.
their door one day, ding dong.
They are
They've
interested in all of
requested
this. And then an Epson projector that would go along with the smart board. So it's The prices, we've got 6 Macs at $300 per device, 10 Dell Chromebooks at $60 per device, 1 smartboard worth $100, and an Epson projector worth $350.
So,
Where-
given the age of the stuff, it's still
just
useful
gonna
for
say,
them?
they
It's
can-
useful for the fire
If it was
department
me,
for
I'd be
what they
like,
would be running
"See
it
you
for.
later."
It won't run Go Math or advanced educational software, but it is effective for their use, and they are looking for the equipment.
Well, they did help us unload a truck, so.
Fair And any device that was ever used to store protected private information? will be
Everything's wiped.
Okay,
Fully wiped, yeah.
just getting that out there.
Okay.
Very lawyerly. All right, so do we have a motion to make the equipment donation to the Norfolk Fire Department as described?
I move to make the equipment donations to the Norfolk Fire Department as described. And thank them for their help with the food trucks as well.
It's an old computer. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. And then the last thing I have is the quarterly budget update. Todd has prepared this. This is his last submission of the quarterly budget update. Basically, right now, we are projecting that we will be expending almost all of the allocated budget. And he always puts it forth by the budget codes under district administration, which is the superintendent, business office, human resource, legal services, and district technology. We are projecting that we will be expending 98.5% of the budget allocation. We are over budget in instructional services, so we're projecting 100.12%. And the reason for that is that we had to add an unbudgeted assistant for a student that moved into the district with special education needs. Other student services, which is health and nursing, pupil transportation, food services, other activities, security. We're projecting currently we will spend 99.93% of the budget. One area of concern is potential additional costs for special education and transportation. We are going to have an additional outplacement. And food service. Because all meals are free, we potentially could have to subsidize some of the food service budget for staff benefits and things like that. Actually, benefits are on the town for staffing costs. Operations and maintenance, we're projecting spending out 99.68% of that budget. That's custodial services, maintenance, heating and utilities, extraordinary maintenance, networking. There is concern that we may have some unanticipated costs due to the aging building at H. Olive Day. It's 25 years old, and so we've had plumbing issues that we've had to repair. We've had some issues with sprinkler systems. Right now, everything's okay, but it is an aging building, so just to be aware of. Not that we may have to do something here. Fixed charges over expended a little bit. We're projecting 100.2% over by $70. That's a small budget line. That's employee retirement, fixed costs, insurance programs, contractual benefits, things like that. I think we are anticipating a few more. We typically expect 2 retirements. I think we may see more than that for next year. Equipment, we don't have any money in that account, so we're not spending anything. Programs with other districts, which would be in-state schools, residential programs, collaboratives, and private schools. We are looking at 97% of that budget being expended. As Todd mentioned, we do have an additional outplacement that we are absorbing. That leaves us with a balance of about $3,000 left in the special education lines. So overall, at this time, we are looking at expending 99.9% of our budget with a potential estimated surplus of $1,000, $254. It's tighter than it has been other fiscal years this early in the school year. Again, the biggest change is additional staffing for special education and an additional outplacement that we have incurred.
No, that's always been a wild card.
Yeah. Todd also put information in about the special revolving funds, special revenue funds, and the school gift fund. The balance in the school gift fund is $43,392. So far, they've spent $300, so the balance is $43,057. And that's donations that have come in for various things.
Does that get carried over year to year?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, revolving accounts, you
Revolving,
can-
right, you
yep.
said that, okay.
Happy to answer any questions anyone has
What
on
is
the
our
budget.
heating source in this building?
The heating source in this building, we have a boiler.
No, is it
He
gas
means the
or
fuel.
oil?
Oil or gas?
He means
The
the
fuel, sorry.
No, what do we, I don't know. I don't know, I'd have to check on that.
Yeah, no, I just-
I know it's a boiler, and I believe it's oil.
Someone get
but
mad
I
on the
have to
phone.
confirm.
Did they tell us?
No, I just wondered.
I know it's
I
oil
be-
at the HL.
I
I know it's oil there.
I
I
believe
wasn't
it's
sure
oil
here.
here as well.
I believe it is too, but I
Did
want to
you run
confirm.
gas lines when you did the
I
project?
think we did, just because we're right off town center. And there's
Did what?
gas lines. I think there's a gas line to this school.
No, I'm pretty sure it's oil, but I'll check and I'll
Okay.
let you know at our
You're
next
wrong.
meeting.
Well, the reason I ask this budget-wise is that with everything else being shortage right now, that they estimate the fuel and heating
Right.
bills are going to go through the roof. And so I assume we have already, do we lock into a,
We have in the past.
Whatever our source of heat is, we lock into
have
them?
in the past, and it's, and again, I know that we've done that with oil contracts. I believe both buildings are oil. I
Okay.
have to check
It's,
that if we've
I'm
locked it in for this year.
99.9%, because we talked about fixing, there was a locked rate, like a prepaid rate a couple of years ago in the budget, and
Yep.
it was for
I think
both
right.
buildings.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm saying, yeah, hopefully we did, because otherwise that would be a massive wild card if we got a
Matt's
cold
usually
winter.
right on top of that, so I will check with him and let you know.
This guy's just busy driving trucks elsewhere.
He's on top of everything, I'm telling you.
All right, that's all I have for tonight.
All right, so committee going on to King Philip.
So we had a meeting last night, and Paul told us that the fifth quarter event that they had postponed, it was an event as a drug-free, alcohol-free option for kids after the football game to enjoy themselves. They had food trucks, cornhole, all sorts of things. It sounded like a really good time. They had about 250 students attend, so it was a great success, and they're hoping to have a few each year. It was put on by Healthy KP group.
That's it,
Graduation will be the weekend of 6/5 and has actually been moved from the 4th to the 5th because of an event at Stonehill. KP is actually at 80% for vaccination when you include those that are partially vaccinated. So Paul's just waiting for a few of those to be moved to the completed column, and then he will be working on submitting the paperwork for the mask waiver in the next weeks or so. What else? Some exciting news. They're working with several universities, like UMass Dartmouth, to work on opportunities for students and teachers to gain college credits instead of doing APs for maybe college credits. So more to come on that, but they're definitely working on that. It sounds like there's some exciting things, and it makes me feel very glad to not be a high school student right now. It's a lot of work. Another thing that Dr. Mobley talked to us about in a presentation about goals for the next few years is that instead of midterms, traditional midterm exams, they're going to do more of a hands-on learning experience as an evaluation, so it won't be a test. It'll be something that she wants to be engaging and fun, so like with a math class, instead of coming in and just filling out equations and things like that, you're going to construct a building using math skills, something like that for each subject. So it'd be more of a interactive in applying what you're learning, which I think sounds really fun. There's some mold remediation done in the building that they're continuing to monitor. The guidance department has been moved into the library temporarily while they fix that. And I think that is it. It was a very short meeting last night.
Seems
Good
like
for
you
you.
covered a lot.
Yeah.
Very informative, short meeting. All right, thank you. Moving on to policy.
Yes, we are in the process of reviewing and revising our animal policy on school property and in school buildings. MASC came out with a new suggested policy, so we're kind of comparing the new one to our current one. And this would be in regard to animals within the school buildings as well as in the immediate school property. Our
Service animals we're speaking of, or?
all animals.
So we have a current policy. Every district has a policy about animals in school. Service dogs are allowed to be in the school building. Some policies allow animals for special presentations with advance notice. We also had an incident, actually it wasn't within school, but there was an incident on the rec fields a couple of weeks ago with a dog that attacked a young child. The child was injured. The animal control officer has reached out. As you guys probably remember, last spring, the select board changed the town bylaws, and instead of the select board governing animals on all town property, they delegated that responsibility to the boards that oversee specific policy, for specific property. In response to the issue that happened a couple of weeks ago, the rec department has revoted their policy, and they are moving forward with not allowing animals on any town rec fields, period. The animal control officer asked us to consider that, what we want to do on school grounds. And so we're looking at that, and we're also looking at our policy. Is it inclusive when it talks about service animals of law enforcement dogs? And what do we want to do about educational programs involving animals in the school? So we'll come with a recommendation next month.
So you can't bring an animal to any town recreational field?
That was what the Board of Rec voted at their last meeting, and they'll be advertising that and putting signs out. My understanding from the animal control officer is that there've been a number of incidents. This was the most recent, but that she has been called because of animals that aren't well controlled, animals that aren't leashed, and so they're not allowing animals on the rec fields.
But we have leash, I mean, okay.
Yeah, that's,
We're in the process,
leash
we're
law.
dealing with in the school.
No, I know,
the
and I'm
playground
trying to
area.
get some context for
Yeah.
why we're having the conversation, so
Yeah, we do
I
need
guess
to.
from my standpoint, and I understand that it's not something we're voting on tonight, but
Yep.
from my standpoint, there seem to be a number of rules and bylaws pertaining to pet ownership, responsible pet ownership in the town, all of which I adhere to and fully support. So it seems like a lot, but sure.
Yeah, and we don't govern the rec department.
No,
fields,
of
so-
course not, and that's just me saying
Yeah, no, I understand.
my response to it, and I don't know that we have that much property that an animal would be on.
So what we would govern would be at both schools, the playgrounds, the play field immediately adjacent to. So for us, it's in front of Freeman, there's a playground, and then to the left is a field.
So between not the baseball field over there, but the one in the middle.
fenced-in play field
Yeah, okay.
adjacent, and the sidewalks and parking lot areas. Same at H. Olive Day.
Okay.
But we're looking at that, and again, we'll come with a recommendation next time. The rec department board is, voting on the town fields, and I haven't seen what their policy actually looks like, but I know that they voted to not allow animals on rec fields.
Yeah, I'd be curious how it works out, because that could get weird if we ended up in a different spot, because you could it's fine to have a dog here, but 4 feet over, you
Yep.
can't have a dog,
that's what I was
leashed or not, and
Yeah.
like Medora said, there's a leash law regardless of
Yep.
what magical area they occupy. so
Not that, and I fully recognize that there are plenty of people who
Delinquent owners,
don't follow those rules and regulations and don't license their dogs and
They don't pick up.
don't clean up after their dogs or do and then leave the bag. You know, what I mean, like I understand, I fully
Yeah.
understand that like this utopian concept of responsible dog ownership might not actually work out, so.
And I think we do have some unique issues that we have to consider at school during the school day when we have kids going out to recess.
Certainly.
We have had some challenges, I'll be very honest, at each Olive Day during SAC time and before and after school times when kids are going out. Our little kids, they move really quickly and they're chasing a ball, and we've had issues with pets there. Dogs think they're playing. They're running
Right.
after a ball
Sure.
and they chase the ball and kids get afraid. So unlike the weekends where kids are with parents
Yeah,
and
that's right.
you have a teacher that might be out with 20 kids. And so we have to consider that. We haven't made a final decision and we don't have a final
We're bringing it
recommendation.
forth.
But we're looking at all of those things.
First reading will be in November.
Yep.
Just our first.
I know years ago, they used to have an owl thing at HOD, I don't know if they still
Yeah.
have it, that was awesome.
Yeah, and that's what
I
we
vote
also
we
have to
keep
They
look
would,
at
they
our
would come to
currently.
the Stony Brook thing too, the
No,
owl
I
people would
specifically
come.
went to
Yeah,
come
no,
on my own, I would
the
go
owl
watch the- I
presentation was
think owls
awesome,
are great.
yeah.
And that is one of the things that we'll look at with our policy is expanding the section on what the requirements are for animals in school programs. That our current policy is a little vague on that, so.
Yeah, because there was a whole rec department
Yeah,
after-school
there
animal
was, with
program.
lizards and
With lizards and
alligators
in the
yeah.
gym at HOD,
Yeah.
that was.
And we did that last year
I met a
outside because
kangaroo
of
there.
COVID. We couldn't do the field trips, so.
We won't ban
I
them.
think we digressed enough, but anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's get back to the kangaroo. Okay.
Wait, aren't we voting on an incidental change on some policy though? Face coverings? Mm-hmm. It's written as a vote
Yep,
here.
sorry. That was the policy we discussed last time. We just removed the requirement for adults to mask outside if they
Got it.
can't maintain distancing. Yeah.
So then we have a motion on, I don't have my glasses on, so policy regarding face coverings, I cannot read those letters.
So moved.
We have a second of that. I really, I can't read that.
I move that we adopt the incidental change to policy EBCFA face coverings. Can I have
We
a
get a
second to
second
my
out of that?
proper motion?
Okay, Shannon's laughing, so we'll take that as a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, my glasses keep fogging up, so I can't read little letters like that. I apologize.
Accept the minutes.
And then, yeah, we'll talk through the minutes from last meeting, and then is everyone good for November 9th for our follow-up meeting?
That's town meeting,
That's town meeting?
I believe so. I'm pulling out, I got this.
There is a town meeting
New
scheduled
app,
for November,
and
but I
I-
don't have the date.
And her app will tell us.
It's town meeting November 9th.
Okay.
It's in my app.
Perhaps the subsequent week. Wait,
So the date would be
So
the
16th?
16th? 15th?
fine.
So, because, yeah, it's the week after that, you're into Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So 16th?
Sure,
Does that work for everybody?
sounds good.
I will
And
invite
then-
Mary Nick out to the next meeting, so. we can
Okay,
meet.
great.
Okay, so then we need a motion to accept the minutes from the September 14th meeting.
Move to accept the minutes from September 14th.
Second, if Sarah says they're good, they're good.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, in favor?
Aye.
And then finally, we need a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.